goblins and ghoulies. Hi, my name is Hex and welcome back to, drumroll please, it's Halloween! Happy Halloween, everybody. I hope you're all having a lovely time. I hope you're having some sort of candy or sugary snack treat goodie today. Maybe something nice and warm. Maybe some tea, pumpkin spice, anything really. But yeah, I figured it would be more appropriate to upload a video on the glorious Halloween day, rather than, you know, November 1st, because Halloween's over by that point, you know, so. But I really kind of went, if I do say so myself, a little crazy with this piece. I kind of had a moment where I was like, fuck it, I really want to do a really big grand piece. I want characters that like are in the background, the foreground, the very distant, and I want architecture. I want this to be a fully fleshed out scene. And I, like most pieces that you'll see here, I worked on this way in advance. I think I had probably started this piece at not the beginning of this year, but maybe the first quarter of this year, maybe? And then a lot of stuff came up and I set it aside for a while. And then once it hit September, I said that it's spooky season, I gotta get going on this piece. So here we are. I did end up finishing this on stream, but I had this idea of making a sort of poster-like piece with a bunch of characters at a Halloween party. But of course, because it's a Halloween party, no one is necessarily dressing up as the monsters. They are the monsters. So I wanted to incorporate a lot of different walks of life, so to speak. So I have older characters, younger characters, mask, femme, everywhere in between sort of characters. So it's really just, I kind of just went wild. And yeah, I used this program I got on Steam. It was on sale. It goes on sale pretty frequently, and it was on sale for $2 with tax, I think. It's 3D Home Designer or something, and you're able to create your own, sort of like The Sims, create your own houses, homes, rooms, and decorate them how you see fit with, of course, a limited set of assets, but still. You can change the colors of everything, the height of the walls, the size of things. You could have a chair that's just way too big or way too small. So I ended up designing this sort of large ballroom, and I felt kind of bad because I included a bar underneath the giant window on the left-hand side, but it gets covered up by everybody, but I guess that's sort of the point, so that's fine. But it was really nice to, instead of try to make that stuff up, to just have a solid base with correct perspective and such, to just sort of scribble on top of and say, hey, that looks good enough. Another unfortunate thing, and this is something I'm trying to be okay with, is covering up characters. So a lot of these characters, I, in my head, had these sort of different outfits planned for them, different looks planned for them, and poses and actions and etc, etc. But of course, our two main characters, Ash, the pumpkin butler, and Mindy, the zombified witch, I guess, they're obviously going to be stealing the show and taking up most of the space, which means all of the lovely characters I designed in the background will be covered. But of course that makes sense. It makes a more cohesive scene, and it looks more natural, I guess. It sucks, but that's why you see this red outline, so I know when to stop coloring at least, and when I can start to lose some of the detail in them, and in drawing terms anyway. But this was like such a fun piece to do. I was so excited and so happy, and ready to just sort of throw myself in. I really wanted to like push the lighting, and part of me was like, well, because it's poster, like maybe I shouldn't like render the whole thing. I should leave the line art like black and solid as you sort of see now. And I fought with myself a lot on that. Like, oh, it looks good, but maybe I can just render a little bit like here and there. Like, I bet it would look a little better if I did this. And that's just a slippery slope to me, as you'll see later, rendering the whole thing. But it was really, again, a little unfortunate because Ash is holding up this tray and it covers up his really nice, he's got these like tassels pinned to his chest. You can sort of see them by his hand dangling, and they were like some of my favorite bits to draw. But because he's got these three glasses in front of him, they sort of have to be transparent enough where they sort of come off as glass, which is a lot tougher than I thought it would be. If you really look at a wine glass, martini glass, empty or full, you'll see that it's almost entirely transparent, which almost looks, I guess to me when I draw, it doesn't look correct. It looks like it's missing something, so I tend to leave them sort of white. They do get a little more transparent. I almost said muted later on. Oh, I'm explaining live 2D stuff, don't ignore that. But rendering those was such a fun thing to do too, because I don't typically do like glassware and liquids that often, especially having them interact with each other. To have the back of the glass be transparent enough that like the liquid also is transparent enough to see through, but the front part of the glass is also transparent enough to see through the liquid through the back part of the glass. Maybe I think a little too much about stuff like this. But then I got around to doing the stained glass window, which is another sort of colored transparent object, which the window to the right hand side is simply just glass, so that's a little easier to do. But I had a tough time finding a good like layer mode that would allow for the vibrancy of the stained glass but still look like stained glass, like keep that transparency. And I messed around with it a lot. I did multiple layers, like an overlay of color to the black and white stained glass, and I eventually got there. But I think what really helped me for the stained glass is doing a sort of white edge around the border of each pane and then blending that out. It sort of gives it not necessarily frosted, but like just looks more glassy. I don't know. It just looks good. And then what I did is I got to the lighting. I did very, very minor sort of shading and more dramatic or stronger lighting in the background, because with all the lights that are coming in, you're really not going to see too much of the shadow. The light is just going to end up kind of blanketing everything. It becomes not opaque necessarily, but, you know, stronger. And then I get to do more dramatic shading on our front characters here, the ones that are closest to us, because they're technically the most important. Do all the decorations and make sure that they have their own appropriate shadows. And I really am a big fan of the balls of light for lighting instead of, you know, like string lights or a chandelier, because like it's fantasy. Why not? There's nothing that says I can't do it, so. But I was really trying to push myself with the shading and the rendering. I see this a lot, and it's a pet peeve of mine, where I see a lot of people with more anime styles specifically, or cartoony styles, they render and shade the body and everything from the neck down so beautifully, and the hair too. But when they get to the face, maybe because they're more anime features, everything seems a lot more flat. There's not as much rendering going on, and I try to check myself and make sure I'm not doing that, because I know I definitely have. So I'm trying to push myself to make those shadows, and I hope it came across that way on Mindy's face especially, because she's the one who should have the most of the human characters, should have the most light shadow contrast on her face. Ash, it's kind of hard because he's a pumpkin, so like he's got these big facets that are easy to shade, but you know, she's got a lot of detail going on, so I want to make sure that that comes across correctly. And the other characters in the background, their shading should be a lot more soft and subtle because they're sort of in the background. In art terms, that's technically how that works. If it's farther in the background, it should have less detail, less contrast to it, because you don't want your eye to go to that. You want to go to the nice characters in the front who are bright and colorful and full of contrast and Shazam in your face. It was hard not to get carried away though. I really did want to go ahead and render the heck out of all those characters, and I did, but once I put the lighting on them, it did help to tone them down a little bit, push them farther into the background, which was sort of a great thing to see, and help to reassure me that I'm doing the right thing. It's okay, it'll work out. But then I think we're getting to the part where I start to render, and I put like these bright highlights on the glasses, and I'm putting this very bold orange highlight across everything in the foreground. Yeah, everything that's closer to us. This just helps sort of define the foreground from midground and background, and objects from objects. This is something that, like, it's not something you would necessarily see in real life. This is more artistic choice and liberty, but it looks more aesthetically pleasing to most people, I would say. They would prefer to have it than not, even though it's not real or not something that's technically correct. I had one friend, I was highlighting something in a similar situation, and he said, "Why did you do that? That's not how it would look according to the lighting that you've got going on." And I said, "Well, it looks better. Like, if I show you what it looks like without it, you'll see it doesn't look as good because your eye just sort of gets lost in it all." So with this highlight, it's sort of like, oh yes, I can see shape, 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 object, object, object. I'm showing off Ash and Mindy's concept that I had done for them. They look so lovely. Then I rendered some more of the drinks. Looking back at them now, I definitely do wish I gave them a little bit more transparency, but it still sort of works. Glass is tough, man. Like, I don't know what you want from me. Doing stained glass window on a dark background of a night sky is fine, but glass that's against a tray and a detailed man is something I'd love to try again, but definitely not that easy. But with that being said, I hope you all have a lovely Halloween. Please tell me any things you might be doing tonight. Are you going to scare someone? Are you going to trick? Are you going to treat? Are you going to trick and treat? Where I am, unfortunately, I cannot do those things, and I vicariously want to live through people who are. So, dress up, show me some pictures, have a blast, be safe, and be spooky. And I will see you all next time. Goodbye! Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to all my patrons for supporting me. Special shout out goes to my $20 Demon tier patrons, Mimi Chai and Jay Laughs. See you guys next time. Bye!